Let's improve our CreateTrack dialog a bit. First of all, we want the ability to toggle it. So if we hit the cancel button, this should be removed, and we should be able to display it when we click on the floating action button that we have in the bottom right hand corner. Some improvements that we could also make is making the description text field a bit larger, since we know that we want to add more text with our description than with the title. And also we want to, when we select an audio file, display the name of the audio file, as well as make sure that our users can only select valid audio file MIME types. Let's begin by adding the ability to toggle our dialog. First of all, instead of setting open to true by default, let's create an open piece of state. So we'll bring in useState up at the top, and we'll call our piece of state open. The setter will be setOpen, and by default, open is going to be false. So let's pass this open variable to our open prop, and we want to set open to true when we click on our floating action button. So there we want to add an onClick, an inline arrow function, where in the return we call setOpen and pass the value true. And for our cancel button, within the dialog, within dialog actions, we want to add an onClick there and setOpen, or rather pass setOpen the value false. So let's save CreateTrack and try toggling our dialog now. When we click on the button, we see our dialog. When we hit cancel, it goes away. And I'm also going to change the icon that's displayed within the button when our dialog is active. So we'll add a ternary within our fab button to say if open's true, then we're going to display the clear icon. Otherwise, if not, we use the add icon. So now we see how the icon used toggles according to the open state. Next, let's take care of the size of our description text field. We want to make that multi-line. So when we head down to our form control component for our description, on the text field, we want to add the keyword multi-line, and we can also set the number of rows we want it to have with this rows prop. So I'll pass it the string 2. So when we save, and take a look at our dialog, we see now description has 2 rows. You can make this however many rows that you like. And now we want the ability to, when we select an audio file, display the name of it next to the button. So let's head to our form control for the audio input. And the first thing to take care of before we actually display the name of the selected file, we want to lock down what file type should be accepted, because obviously we only want users to pick valid audio file types. At the moment when our input is selected, we still have access to video formats like this MP4 file. So to make sure that these files can't be selected, files that aren't, for example, MP3s and WAV files, those are just 2 example valid audio file types. To make sure that those are the only file types that are accepted, we can add on our input an accept attribute, and then provide as comma separated string values the different MIME types that we want the input to select. So the first one is going to be audio/MP3 for MP3 files. Then we'll add a comma and include any other audio file types that we want. I'm just going to include audio/WAV. And note that to accept any valid audio type, you can say audio/ and then an asterisk. So now when we save this and we open up our dialog and try adding an audio file, we see that the MP4 file is now faded out. We can't select it. So in order to, when we select a given audio file, display the name here, we need to add some form state. We need to add state for title, description, and audio file in particular. So let's create some state. And the first piece of state is going to be for the title. So the setter will be set title, and that's going to have a default value of an empty string. And the same for description. And instead of making this third piece of state URL state, we're going to call this file instead. So we're going to save our image data in state in the form of this file variable, and we'll explore in the next video how we're going to take this file and upload it in order to get a URL that we can pass to our CreateTrack mutation. So now that we've got our state variables and setters, let's head first to the title text field. We'll add an onChange and pass the event to set title. Namely, we're going to pass event.target.value, again to get the text value that was typed into the input. We'll head down to description and add an onChange there. Change the setter to set description. Then for our audio input, on the input element we'll add an onChange, but we're going to connect it to a new function called handle audio change. So let's head above the return, and we still get an event passed from the onChange to this function. However, in order to grab the individual file that was added, we need to select it from event.target, and instead of value, it'll be .files. And in particular, we need to get the first file, and since files is an array, we need to select the first or the 0th element. So we get the first file in files, and then we're going to put it in a variable called file, or rather we'll call it selected file. And then we can put this selected file in state by passing it to set file. And once our file state's been updated, we can head back down to our input. And first of all, after the button within label, we can add a conditional to say if we have a file, then display the file's name. And that comes from the property file.name. When the selected file is put in state, we'll be able to access that. And next we can also change the color of the button to reflect that a file has actually been selected. So on the color prop for button, we'll create a ternary where we'll say if the file is in state, then we're going to change the color to secondary, otherwise it's going to have its initial value of inherit. And finally, we want to disable our submit button with the disabled prop if we don't have a title, description, or file in state. So if not title or not description or not file, then the button's going to be disabled. And once again, we can include not title.trim and not description.trim to trim off any white space. Now let's save CreateTrack and see if this worked out for us. So if we provide a title, description, and we select an audio file, we see that our file name appears to the right hand side of the button, our button changes color, and our submit button's no longer disabled. So we've done a lot here in improving our CreateTrack dialog. In the next video, we'll take a look at how to upload audio files, as well as how to actually create a new track with the help of this dialog.